Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the program today, our first guest is not running for governor, but she may be the next speaker. Ray Hagar has the rundown.
Thanks, Sam. Today's guest, Barbara Buckley. Democrats across the state are looking forward to the day when she's the Speaker of the Assembly, but has she in fact already taken the role as de facto Speaker?
And coming up on the Power Pundit panel today, John Griffin, John Gwaltney, and Fred Lokken. It's all coming up next on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
Corporations moving to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center require reliable power, fiber optic communication, and clean water sources. And yet, there's another amenity we're very proud of here at TRI, rail service. So far, we've built over 2 miles of railroad track, and another 3.6 is under construction. When companies need to transport freight, we're going to help them move it quickly and efficiently. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the largest industrial park in the world, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
As an employer, did you know you can be held liable for negligent hiring? A background screening by Employer Links can uncover criminal records, like alcohol and drug convictions. It can verify the applicant's education, driving records, and professional licenses. Employer Links can check civil records, registered sex offender records, and Social Security fraud. Hiring the right person shouldn't be a gamble. Call Employer Links. Employer Links, protecting your investment.
I tell you, John, this industry has really changed.
Tell me about it.
You seem to do pretty well last year. What's your secret?
No secrets. Although I'll tell you something. The smartest thing I did was sign up with Pro Group Management.
Really? They do workers' comp, right?
Yeah, their services are great. And get this, they saved me 30%. I've heard they saved others 50%.
That works for me.
Pro Group Management. Finally, workers' comp that works for you.
This satellite interview is sponsored by Scott Craigie and Allris Consulting.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, Ray Hagar and I are joined by Barbara Buckley, the Assembly Majority Leader. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Barbara, good to see you. Barbara, first off, you know, we look forward to the day where you're the Speaker of the Assembly, but really, haven't you already taken over as de facto Speaker by making interim appointments and leading the caucus?
Well, you know, having the role of majority leader is, I think, a great preparation or training ground for the role of Speaker, because you're involved in the day-to-day operation of the caucus and the procedures. The recent appointments I did in consultation with the Speaker. So,
now, did you call him on his cell phone when he was at the Baltic to get his opinions?
Ooh, low blow, low blow. No, I contacted him on his cell phone here in Las Vegas and in Henderson, and we talked about the appointments.
Let's talk about prescription drugs. We've seen that other states are now going to Australia and other countries. Sri Lanka is being talked about. Where does this sit for the state of Nevada?
Well, I think that's something we can look at next legislative session after we see how our experiment with Canada goes. I think that, I mean, a lot of the prescription drugs, you know, throughout the world are made in Ireland as well, and that's another place that a lot of states are looking to. I think probably in the end what will make the most difference is ensuring that the drugs are safe. And that has to be paramount. But certainly looking at other countries might be a next step for us.
Barbara, going into the 07 legislative session, it seems like Democrats have many issues on their plate: eminent domain, health care, education, sex offender legislation. Could you possibly give us the key things for the Democratic platform for the 07 legislature?
Well, I think we're just now beginning to look at that, and some of the issues that you mentioned will be front and center on our platform. I think the United States Supreme Court decision on eminent domain was very disappointing, and it may be that it's time for an outright ban on eminent domain when it's used to benefit another private property owner. Health care, I mean, we continue to have one of the highest rates of uninsured in our nation. I'd like to see us expand health insurance to more employees of small businesses. We took a step to do that last session. I'd like to see us expand on that. And education. I think one of the best measures we passed last session was to fund innovative educational programs. I'm wearing a Charger button right here. I just came from Clark High School, which has a great magnet program for math. And I think we need to look at more as in our state as to what is working and expand it to other schools. So I think those will be some of our top issues.
You said in a recent article in the Review-Journal that the growth of spending at the legislature is going to drop in 07. How do you think you're going to accomplish that with the tremendous growth we're seeing?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I recently was reading an analysis of what type of spending Nevada has done, you know, it's in the past 30 years. And by and large, our spending has kept up with CPI and a growth rate. And I think you're not going to see any new taxes from the Nevada legislature. I think the economy's doing well, and I think you'll see a reflection of that, in that there won't be any new taxes, and that growth in spending will be kept at a population growth level, and that'll be it.
You know, that sounds a little bit like Tabor. Let's take a break and come back and talk about that right here on Nevada Newsmakers.
For a videotape copy of any Nevada Newsmakers program, call 775-857-2244. The tapes are $20 each, including shipping.
For more than a decade, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has been helping the community embrace conservation as a way of life. That includes replacing more than 50 million square feet of grass with water-smart landscaping. During the worst drought on record, watering restrictions and tough landscaping codes have reduced the community's water use by billions of gallons, even as thousands of new residents were moving into Nevada. That's smart water management, and that's our promise to Nevada.
My family started this business 27 years ago.
We work hard to serve our customers and our community.
But it's getting harder and harder to keep the doors open.
For example, our workers' comp is going through the roof. Isn't anyone on my side anymore?
The Retail Association of Nevada is. If you're a small business owner, we can cut your workers' comp by up to 50%, lobby for your interests, and keep you informed. Put us to work today.
Reno's best dining values are all at one casino, the Pepper Mill. You can enjoy great savings on our popular specials. Pepper Mill's coffee shop offers daily lunch specials, low-carb dining, and all your favorite comfort foods. You'll find sensational lunch specials featuring Reno's freshest seafood, sushi, pasta, and more at Oceano. And early bird specials at Reno's Premier Steakhouse and Romanza Ristorante Italiano. The best values are at the Pepper Mill. Where are you dining?
Many of the materials we rely on every day come from the ground, and modern mining technology brings them to us cleaner and safer than ever before. To learn more about America's natural resources, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
This satellite interview is sponsored by Scott Craigie and Allris Consulting.
And we're back talking with Assembly Majority Leader Barbara Buckley.
Barbara, if the next governor is a Republican and he or she proposes maybe a cut in taxes, maybe business taxes, would the Democrats in the Assembly oppose that?
Well, Well, you know, I think probably the answer would be yes. You know, you have to look at every proposal on its merits. I mean, last session, the Assembly Democrats sponsored a cut in taxes for anyone who was a small landlord who's merely offering an apartment or two out of their own home or a rental property. So it always depends on what it is. But Nevada is a low-tax state, and we want to continue that while making sure we have enough funds to operate schools, to help, you know, finally meet our mental health needs so we don't have our emergency rooms full of the mentally ill because we don't fund state prescription clinics and other services for the mentally ill. So you always have to have a balance in what you're doing.
You know, we saw obviously great growth in gaming taxes and sales taxes over the last biennium, and we're likely to see exactly the same. It doesn't look like there's any slowdown in either of those areas. We had obviously the governor has given the state back a giant rebate of $300 million. Do you anticipate another rebate going into the next session?
You know, I think that remains to be seen. I think that was a popular way to make sure that we gave some of the excess income back, and we'll have to see what those figures are. You know, I think, though, one thing we have to keep in mind is we're experiencing a tremendous economic burst right here in Nevada, and that's wonderful, but you never know when that when something might happen. We saw that in 2002. Nevada was going gangbusters before 9/11, and then we had a serious, setback there. So you have to always plan for both the good and the bad.
You know, when at the end of the last segment, as I mentioned, you were starting to sound like you were in support of Tabor. What is your thought on that, or task as it's now called at the Nevada version?
It scares me to death. I think that it's caused catastrophic results in Colorado. I recently went to a National Conference of State Legislators debate between the former Republican chair of the Colorado Finance Committee and Grover Norquist, who's importing this program throughout the country. And it's scary. It gives a state no opportunity to plan for a disaster. And schools and other programs are at risk. I think it's frightening.
Even with a larger rainy day fund, like $500 million?
Well, that's one of the scary things about Tabor is that it does not have a rainy day fund. I think that the scariest thing for me is that what happens when you have an economic downturn or a recession? Well, you do what we did and what the governor did in 2002. You freeze position, you cut back. And then when the rough times are over, you try to get back to the level where you need to be. That's what smart planning does, and that's what Tabor prohibits. You can't operate like that.
Barbara,
so that's what scares me.
Barbara, your rivals in the Assembly, the Republicans, are currently going through a tug-of-war to decide who their next leader would be. We have Bob Seale, we have Heidi Gansert, we have Garn Mabey. Who of those three would do the Democrats work the best with?
And you've got about 20 seconds on this.
We'll work with anyone the Assembly Republicans elect.
Okay, and we're sorry we're short on time here today, but thank you so much for being here. We'll be happy to have you back here. Barbara Buckley. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
How long does it take to get to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park? Well, it's just 10 minutes east of Reno Sparks on Highway 80, just minutes from the airport. And under construction is an interchange linking I-80 to TRI's 4-lane USA Parkway. And soon, this parkway will connect Interstate 80 to Highway 50. How far is the world's largest industrial center from your home? It's a lot closer than you think. Welcome to the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, building economic prosperity for Nevadans.
The Nevada Beer Wholesalers encourages the responsible consumption of beer. The Nevada Beer Wholesalers Association are sponsors and participants in many community-based efforts such as school education programs, safe ride home, recycling programs, alcohol-free after-prom and graduation parties, safe boating campaigns, and designated driver programs. They are family-owned businesses employing 2,000 Nevadans. They also collect and pay the state excise tax. The Nevada Beer Wholesalers Association, delivering more than just beer.
Island Inkjet is now open on South Meadows Parkway. Island Inkjet will refill your inkjet cartridges in just 1 hour. We have the ink to precisely match over 240 cartridges, saving you up to 60% on the cost of buying a new cartridge. Our work is 100% guaranteed, and contrary to what you may have heard, refills do not void any printer warranties. You don't throw out your car when it runs out of gas. Don't throw out your cartridges. Refill them at Island Inkjet on South Meadows Parkway by Smith's.
Something spectacular has taken wing not far from Reno or Lake Tahoe, and never far from your mind. An escape of fine dining and legendary golf. Introducing the resort at Red Hawk. And at the center of it all, we've feathered our nest with new villas that have elevated Red Hawk to the status of a premier resort. The resort at Red Hawk, a beautiful new arrival in northern Nevada.
And now, back to Nevada Newsmakers with Sam Shad.
And joining Ray and I on the Power Pundit panel today, John Gwaltney with the State School Board, Fred Lokken, Professor of Political Science at Truckee Meadows Community College, and John Griffin with the Crowell Group. Welcome to all of you.
Mr. Gwaltney, I wanted to start with you. Barbara Buckley did not want to cut taxes, but if we're bringing in enough tax revenue where we're giving back $300 million, shouldn't maybe a tax cut or a deduction be considered during the legislature?
Well, certainly if you're going to give money back more than 1 year, it would appear to me that a tax cut would make more sense than a rebate. But let me indicate to you that much of what I'm hearing from the 17 counties that are looking at their budgets for public schools is that massive cuts, substantial cuts, are taking place in the public school system. The raises that were suggested are really not there. An awful lot of the budget which is necessary for support of public schools are just simply not there. And so I would suggest to you the $300 million has a better use.
Do you think that the legislature hoodwinked public education in this last section?
I absolutely do.
Could you expand on that maybe?
Well, I think part of the issue is that when we looked at the budgeting, or the support which was in that, originally there was supposed to be about $46 of new funding per student in reference to the public schools. Looking at how that was composed, I don't believe that's there. I can't give you the exact figure, but I just don't believe that was there. Secondly, if it had been there, it would have been insignificant. It just was not enough. They concentrated on textbooks, raises, bonuses, and so on, and the big picture skipped by without looking at the total support for public education. It wasn't looked at.
You know, but isn't the big battle going to come here? I mean, you know, obviously on the ballot we're going to have initiatives for a Prop 13 type reduction. We're looking at the Tabor task initiative. Isn't there going to be just a mighty war going on during the election cycle over too much money, not enough money, Fred?
Well, it is, and it will begin with the governor's race. I think that the race coming up in 2006 is literally going to be the battleground over this issue of do we raise taxes or maintain the rates that we have, or do we roll them back? And the arguments that are started by the parties there will just naturally roll into the 2007 legislative session. On the other hand, I think the other point that Barbara made is a valid one. We are perhaps too optimistic to think that the economy is going to keep going like this. And it may be esoteric to talk about this because we easily could be dealing with a recession by the legislative session of 2007 and actually looking at cutting, which you feel you need to spend more on. And to me, that at this stage is perhaps the bigger risk.
Okay, but I mean, if you look realistically at what's going on in both northern Nevada and southern Nevada, what indicators do you see that point toward a recession in the Silver State? I mean, the booming building boom, I'm getting confused here, the building boom down south with these city center project, the Wynn wants to put in a similar type project down there. Nobody's looking at slowing down the growth in casino building. The locals casino industry has got everything planned out over the next 5 to 7 years, seeing growth there. Up in northern Nevada, we're seeing exactly the same thing. What do you think would trigger a recession in the Silver State?
Well, we also have to remember that 80% of our state budget's driven by gaming tax and sales tax, highly recession vulnerable, and all we need is another 9/11 to think that we aren't going to have something happen between now and 2007 is, I think, just unrealistic. And our government, I think, at the federal level keeps reminding us of that. That, you know, they're doing the best job they can, but we've dodged a few bullets already. And another terrorist attack is going to send that same fear that we saw after 9/11, and I think have the same consequential effect. Nevada was lucky the last time. It bounced back very quickly. But I would rather see the state move to a pattern of being less recession vulnerable by finding other revenue streams. And that's something that this, you know, the past legislative sessions have not been willing to really explore. As long as we depend on sales tax and gaming tax, we're in a house of cards, and all of this could fall apart. And the biggest impact would be in areas like education, which are so dependent on that, with over half the budget going to higher ed and K-12. I think we need to step forward, be responsible, and think about a different way of structuring our funding in Nevada.
Okay, John.
But to some degree, I think Fred's point, the industry, the gaming industry, is taking care of some of that. I mean, the 800-pound gorilla right now in southern Nevada is not Steve Wynn, it's Stations Casinos. And their primary market is neighborhood gaming. I don't think, you know, if there's another 9/11, if there's another catastrophe, sure, maybe the tourist-related aspect of the gaming industry dips. But I think, at least in southern Nevada, that bet's been hedged by just the massive explosion of neighborhood gaming. And you look up in northern Nevada, you know, two of the biggest and best properties in northern Nevada derive most of their income off of neighborhood-related customers, Peppermill, Atlantis. And so, to some extent, I think the industry's taking care of some of that.
And the Peppermill is going to announce their next tower and convention space coming up on Thursday. Stations is putting in what would be a Green Valley Ranch-type property down at Mount Rose. Cabela's is coming into the north. The Reno Hilton property is, if that goes through, is going to be the largest water park in America, indoor water park in America. I mean, and I agree with you, both ends of the state seem to be booming, and I just don't see that in the short term. Perhaps, you know, obviously in the long term, Lord knows what's going to happen. Yeah. But in the short term, over the next couple, 3 to 5 years, I don't see anything but growth unless there was a huge disaster in California, for example, that stopped people coming over.
Excuse me, sir. Never interrupt the host.
No, please. Anytime, please.
Actually, I think the bigger threat is the energy question. Don't forget that as gasoline rises, it may not be the problem in trucking over the hill to from Sacramento here. It has to do with the amount of disposable income people have in their pocket and what they can actually buy. The slowing of the economy, and I think that's already underway. And I hesitate to totally agree with Fred here as a colleague, but I would suggest that the economy is going to level off. There's no question about that. And if energy prices stay high, it will take a sizable piece out of people's pocket. And as they face that situation, recreational costs, our activities, have always been one of those things people are willing to give up a little. So the question of whether they're planning to build gigantic centers for gaming is not, to me, quite as significant as can we handle the adjustment to a massive increase in the cost of energy. We're a very high energy consuming country. We have like 6% of the world's population and consume well over 30% of the world's energy. And that hits us harder than anybody else.
And it's going up 45% this winter. That's the issue. I think that as we face, for the Republicans, 2008 clearly is on their horizon at the national level, and they're willing to take the recession now. Ironically, it hits to our 2006 state election and 2007 legislature that I personally think will be facing a recession. Okay, and you said a different form of taxation. What would you do? I mean, you're not looking at a gross receipts type tax, are you? Oh, gosh. Bringing that nightmare back. No, that's a dangerous area. And actually, I think we even have to go back to what was passed in the 2005 legislature. You know, this cap on the growth in property tax is going to have a profound impact on our communities in Nevada. And that wasn't, I think, adequately addressed. And as a result, I mean, in areas, some cities that maybe have pretty significant redevelopment efforts underway, or we're counting on those gross receipts from property tax increases to fund a lot of their needs, now don't have that revenue stream because of that cap. Net good thing from the cap, of course, is that it's predictable, but the net bad thing is it didn't factor in the impact on state and local government in Nevada. So I think the entire, I wish the governor would call together the task force again and really start to talk about things that get us off of recession vulnerable. You know, they're standard things. I mean, nobody likes it, but an income tax of some sort is at least a more stable income.
And the chances of that would be right up there with the Democrat winning congressional district too, right?
Yes, we're hell freezing over, but I understand there's a chill in the air.
I felt it down here.
Well, you'll get some calls on that. Income tax in Nevada, there's an idea.
John? Griffin?
No. I don't. Their income tax is highly unlikely. Everybody will go after the sin stuff
I will
first.
be taller and my hair will come back.
Exactly.
Really, don't we have enough taxes here? I mean, we just passed $836 million worth of new taxes in '03. No need for a state income tax. Anybody who supported that would be voted out of office very quickly.
Well, I don't think, though, in defense of my colleague here, that he is suggesting that more taxes are necessary. I think what he's suggesting is a firm tax base, not so sensitive to recession and so on, which would alleviate some of the other taxes, and I don't mean to speak for you, Fred, but I think the question of putting this state on a firm tax basis that does not fluctuate with the economy or with terrorist questions.
You know what? It's not a can of worms you'd be opening up. It's a 55-gallon drum. We'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers after this.
Nevada Newsmakers, brought to you in part by the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, the world's largest industrial park, the resort at Red Hawk, and the Peppermill family of casinos.
South Reno's hotspot for food, fun, and friends is the Tamarack Junction. Play over 480 of the hottest slots and video poker games. Enjoy hot times and sizzling food specials at Sully's Sports Bar, Grill, and Nightclub. Watch your favorite game on one of our jumbo high-definition plasma TVs. Enjoy great food 24 hours a day in the Dining Car Restaurant. Or sample the best hot and cold sandwiches in the Whistle Stop Deli. The Tamarack Junction is your junction for fun. South Virginia and Amati Ranch Parkway. Yeah.
Island Inkjet is now open on South Meadows Parkway. Island Inkjet will refill your inkjet cartridges in just 1 hour. We have the ink to precisely match over 240 cartridges, saving you up to 60% on the cost of buying a new cartridge. Our work is 100% guaranteed, and contrary to what you may have heard, refills do not void any printer warranties. You don't throw out your car when it runs out of gas. Don't throw out your cartridges. Refill them at Island Inkjet on South Meadows Parkway by Smith's.
Happy Hour at the Peppermill.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org. The National Mining Association.
Don't forget, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers online at nevadanewsmakers.com.
Sam, tomorrow we have Walt Higgins, the head of the power company.
We'll see you then.